I would like to welcome Mr. Jordan Arms to provide our welcoming remarks for this morning's presentation.
Good morning, students and staff at Covington High School. We're here to recognize America's former and current soldiers. Without them, our daily lives and habits would not be the same. They have given the ultimate sacrifice, risking their own lives for our freedom. They have displayed true bravery, courage, and honor. The wars we read about every day in history class are the heroism that has been demonstrated time and again by veterans from the American Revolution to the global war on terrorism is sometimes unnoticed by those of us who enjoy the security their sacrifice has provided. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from families, miss the births of their children, freeze in sub-zero temperatures, the willingness to fight they call. Veterans have given us freedom, security, and the greatest nation on earth. It is impossible to put a price on that. And now, if you could all stand, face the flag, and join me in saying our pledge of allegiance.
Students, go ahead and remain seated. At this time, again, please face the flag, stand for our national anthem. By a show of hands, how many of you in the audience today have a friend, a relative, a neighbor that has served in our armed forces? Raise your hand. So as you can see, we're going to keep your hands in the air, look around the room. Everybody has somebody that they know who is either currently serving or has served in the armed forces. So today's ceremony is a celebration of those people and what they've done for our nation to ensure the freedoms that we have today and the luxuries that make America such a great nation. Mr. Sowers and some high school students have put together a very good presentation, video presentation in honor of our veterans. So at this time, please direct your attention to the large screen. Stay quiet and watch this nice presentation. Thank you.
Oh, I saw the smoking fire. I didn't feel a thing. So when I was rising higher, and I felt like I just made the biggest mistake. When I thought about the morning shadow, when I thought about my life, so many dreams, so this man, sitting there in my home. I understand all myself. It's a world that can be wrong, right. Just like mine. It's got a whole it's really on my mind. I'm trying to be a hero. I'm all night. I will make that sacrifice.
This time, the high school band will perform.
Operation Overlord, or better known as the Invasion of Normandy, began on June 6, 1944, as an Allied offensive of 26,000 Casualties were heaviest on Omaha Beach. Defeating the Nazi regime at Normandy was critical for the Allies. Before the battle, the German army had control over France and all of its resources. For this battle, on June 11th, the beaches were fully secured and over 3,026,000 troops, more than 50,000 up and develop more forces to control Western Europe. If he did not, the war might have gone indefinitely. The following spring, on May 8, 1945, the Allies accepted the surrender of Nazi army.
And the title of that was Normandy Beach, and as Kobe said, this is the 70th anniversary of the D-Day invasion at Normandy Beach. Now, here's Warren Paddock to introduce our next number.
Flanders was a former country of the North Sea that has been the scene of repeated warfare from the time of the Crusades to the remarkable Battle of World War I. In the years of 1915 through 1918, on the Western Front in Belgium, northern France, and the Netherlands, bitter conflict arose. Flanders saw some of the greatest losses of life, including 500,000 World War I and the Allies' brave efforts in protecting Europe. All sides together lost millions of men. And all who fought for all the pride and gaining ground. In 1919, Dr. John McRae wrote the stirring poem in Flanders Field that talks about courage, valor, and protect our lands. On Veterans Day or Remembrance Day in Northern America, we wear a poppy blossom in our lapel. Remember the Veterans Day. We do our best to remember the sacrifice of all who have protected our freedom. We hope that this musical setting
entitled A Patriotic Salute. It includes a few of your favorite patriotic songs, but as well it includes most of the service songs. Each branch of the military has an official song, and you'll hear those songs throughout the next selection that we're going to sing for you, A Patriotic Salute.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah.
Oh, give him a hearty welcome back, hurrah, hurrah. The men will cheer and the boys will shout.
The ladies they will all turn out.
They will all feel safe when Johnny comes marching home. And those caissons go rolling along. And out to the church, country marching right up, and those caissons go rolling along. For a tide and a hill artillery, turns out your numbers loud and strong. And wherever we go, you will always know that those caissons go rolling along. There's a way, my boys. Our last night ashore, drink to the bone, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy to the shores of Tripoli. We will fight our country's battles, like the air on land and sea. First we fight for rights and freedom, and to keep our honor free. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Your flag, your flag, your high flying flag, and forever peace and faith. The anthem of the land of God, the hope of the free and the brave. Every heart beats true for the red, white, and blue, and it's never.
At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Covington High School senior, Mr. Ahmed Shah, to introduce today's guest speaker.
I'm sure many of you have heard the famous quote by President John F. Kennedy. Ask not what you can do for your country, ask what your country can do for you. Our guest speaker this morning has led us life on this quote. From ADHD to education, Dr. Bradley Bolsh has dedicated his life to helping and improving the lives of others. Inspired by his ancestors to serve our country in the as our superintendent and later our school board member, Dr. Bolsh forged stability and trust by resolving some key differences and issues. Soaring up to 50,000 feet in the sky has the ability to give you a whole new perspective on State University. You should know that a former Trojan is the Dean Emeritus of ISU. So, with all that in mind, I would like all of you to join me in welcoming Dr. Bradley Bolsh back to Covington with a warm Trojan welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is my great pleasure to join you once again. Introduction. I'd like to begin by recognizing any veterans who might be joining us today. I'll mention it by branch, and if you stand and remain standing, please. For those who have served in the Army, would you please stand?
Air Force. Covington, help me by giving them a warm applause. I was reminded of a story I shared maybe 18 years ago here in Covington as I drove north from Terre Haute. As a young officer, I was stationed down in San Antonio, Texas, and there was an important event on our base, and I had the opportunity to speak for 3 to 5 minutes. And at formal events, they have protocols. Talking about. We're already prepared for. And it was blank, and I could feel my temperature rising. I turned the page and it was blank. Blank until the next speaker was to begin. And an officer friend of mine called it that speech, and so I regurgitated the entire thing from memory, and I can't do that anymore. But for 25 plus years, I carry at least 3 copies of every speech with me. I have this copy here, and I have this copy here, and then I have another copy out in the car. And I've done that for so long, I forgot why I did that, but I was certainly reminded of that as I came to celebrate Veterans Day with you today. I know that they'll appreciate it, so please do so the next time that you see them. One more question. How many of you know the difference by show of hand between Memorial Day and Veterans Day? Good. Many of you do. For those of you who might not, you should know that we honor our men and women in uniform in the armed forces on both days, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. But Memorial Day remembers and honors those who died serving our country. Veterans Day thanks and honors all those who serve in the military, those living and those that have passed. So today we celebrate all those who have served. In 1921, an unknown World War I American soldier was buried in Arlington Cemetery. This is a site on a hillside that overlooks the Potomac River. It overlooks Washington, D.C. It's absolutely breathtaking. And it became a place of reverence for American veterans. How many of you have ever had the opportunity, by show of hands, to visit Arlington National Cemetery? Wonderful. Well, I'm glad to see that so many of you have, and I do hope that you'll all have that opportunity to do so today. So back in 1921, when this ceremony was occurring in the United States, similar ceremonies had occurred in England and France. They'd all participated in World War I. These memorial ceremonies all took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I at 11 a.m. on November 11th in 1918. The best way to remember that, and the way that I remember it, is that it occurred on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. That's why we're here today on November 11th. Far more associated with World War I. And by then, we'd already participated in 1954 in 2 other wars. The word veteran was used to honor all of our men and women who had served in all wars since the beginning of the country. Today, it's hard to believe that we celebrate more than 22 million veterans who served our great nation. From all foreign and domestic in times of war and peace. Well, what does that mean? It means that there are people who want to do harm to this country. They may live here in the United States, they may live abroad. And for those of us that swear that oath, we say that we'll give our lives to protect this great nation. In swearing this oath, I followed a long legacy of other family members who had served before me. My family served in the Civil War, the Spanish-American War of 1898, World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, the Korean War. When I decided to serve in the 1980s, there were two family members that had particularly influenced me. The first was my father, who had served in the Army during the Vietnam War. And second was my mother's brother, my Uncle Dan. And Uncle Dan was a pilot in the Marines. He had the opportunity to fly planes and helicopters and accumulated about 14,000 hours of flying time. He also taught me to fly at Crawfordsville Airport before I left for undergraduate pilot training in the Air Force. Now, I wanted to tell you just a couple stories. Flying planes with Uncle Dan certainly did much to enhance my courage and my bravery. He said he was going to give me a military-style flight training, and that's exactly what he did. I had about 2 hours of flight time, which wasn't much flight time, and Uncle Dan said, you know, there's multiple ways to handle an in-flight emergency, Brad. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, your yoke just broke. How are you going to land this plane? Well, the yoke is the steering wheel. Helps the plane go up and down, steers it left and right. He said it's broken, you can't. As he's opening his door, I'm starting to buckle down and make sure I'm really strapped in. He reached over and opened my door, and he used the throttle to pitch the plane up and down, used the doors to steer it left and right, and he landed that airport at the Crawfordsville Airport, or landed the plane. He told me, he said, you gotta make sure that you can think clearly under pressure. And that was certainly a good lesson in thinking clearly under pressure. Another time we were out flying, I had a few more hours of experience. And he said, you know, you can land a plane in all situations if you need to. And he was helping remove all fear from flying. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's an abandoned road down there, land it. So I landed this airplane on an old abandoned dirt road. The problem that day was it was extremely hot, and airplanes don't fly as well in hot weather. And the gravel was slowing the wheels down, so we couldn't get up on speed. Go fast enough to take off. I said, Uncle Dan, I don't think we can get this plane off the ground. He said, no problem, there's a little bump in the road yet. And down at the end of the road, there was just a little hump. We hit that hump, and that plane kind of hovered in the air. And finally, for 40 hours of flight training, but I made it nervous. I probably should stop digressing and get back to my original point. I wanted to mention my Uncle Dan because he served as an amazing role model for me and really exemplified what we see and see in our veterans each and every day. We also see that same courage and bravery in the soldiers who defend us today. Was an important thing for me, and I want to get back to that. Not only did it have much to do with my own courage and bravery, but it had to do with patriotism, which is our red, white, and blue flag, the Pledge of Allegiance. Most importantly, I was reminded of Francis Scott Key's Star-Spangled Banner, which he wrote in 1814, 200 years ago. We were at war with Great Britain. Later, this song became our national anthem in 1931. But in Francis Scott Key's song, there's a particular piece that's very important for us. It says, America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. That is as true today as it was 200 years ago. Throughout this nation's history, America's soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, Marines, Coast Guard, they've all bravely answered the call to keep us free. Today it's my privilege to say thank you to all of America's veterans and to let them know how much I appreciate their service, and I honor them for their sacrifices. The price of freedom is high. We can't afford to forget those willing to pay for it with so many sacrifices, including their lives. Today we celebrate America's veterans for keeping the United States as our
Father, as we think upon them, we give you the praise for our freedom to even meet here in a gymnasium. And Father, to listen to Dr. Bell speak as the veterans come. And Father, we see you behind it all. We give you the praise for it. We lift you up through it all. Father, as we go throughout our day, Father, we ask that you would give us time to meditate upon those that have served, that we can give them thanks throughout the day, and that it can change our hearts as well, our minds towards our veterans and towards our country, as we thank you for it. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I want to take this time to thank everyone involved in making this program such a success. Especially want to thank Mr. Brent Walsh for taking time out of his day to speak to all you guys about what Veterans Day means for him. But most importantly, today, your homework is to thank the veteran. So at this time, let's give one more big thanks to all the veterans across the world. Thank you. For all veterans in attendance, please, at this time, you want to make your way over to this side of the gym, to my right, to your left. As students exit, we'll start with the middle school, take the line, and thank you, veteran. And head back to third period for the middle school. Go ahead. High school, just hold on. Elementary school, just hold on.